Well, the Rangers have underachieved in horrible ways this year. And so it begs the question, are there big changes coming for the Rangers in 2026? Can there be, based on big contracts and so forth that are already out there? John Radigan here, Jeff Wilson there. We've got the Queen Cat over there as we give you our thoughts on that topic, which is probably our thoughts are such that it's a little better than you think, right? I think there can be changes despite the fact that you owe all this money to Corey Seager, to Marcus Semien, to Jacob deGrom, to Nathan Eovaldi. They can make some changes, some significant changes, Jeff, and they will.
They have to, right? This isn't a, maybe we could do this, maybe we do that. We have to do this because this is now 2 straight years of failed offense.
Yeah.
2023 was a great and then should be embraced and never forgotten. But what worked then has not worked for 2 straight years. And so it's time to mix it up. The lineup has too many of the same guys. Too many aggressive hitters, too many low on base guys, too many guys who don't make enough contact. And there's just not a functional offense within that. It has happened for a stretch there for a while. The Rangers were doing a lot of things right and manufacturing runs, but for the most part, it just hasn't been that, and hence they're at the bottom of the league in most offensive categories and are probably not going to make the playoffs again. So even if they do make the playoffs, somehow figure something out. It can't be the same in 2026 offensively. And so where do you start? Well, you got to start with the money. All right, what will be available? We've talked about it in the past. Tyler Mahle, John Gray, coming off the books. That's about $30 million. That's the big one, or the big two.
That's the big start. Yeah,
right. And then all the relievers on the roster and in 1-year deals. Chris Martin, Sean Armstrong, Jacob Webb, Hobie Milner. I'm probably forgetting others. So but that doesn't add up to a ton.
No,
maybe 10 to 12 million, 10 to 15 million, let's say. All right, so you're 40 to 45 million. Where else can you free up money? Well, you can cut ties with, and this probably needs to happen.
Yeah,
Adolis Garcia and Jonah Heim. They're making about 14 million combined this year.
Now
shave that from the books.
You're up to close to 60.
You're somewhere in the 50 to 60 million range.
Yeah.
So that's a pretty good amount to start with. Now, could you trade other guys? Could you trade Marcus Semien?
Right.
Well, you could free up some money, but you're not going to free up all of it. You're not going to find a team based on what he's done the past 2 seasons that's going to be like, let me take all that money off of your hands, please. Although he's making around, it was a 7-year, $175 million. So you can do the math and it comes out pretty easily. I don't know necessarily if it was evenly distributed, 25 per year. I think there's a little variance, but the fact of the matter is the Rangers would have to eat some of that to get rid of him.
Sure.
And if they don't, they have a good defensive player and a guy who can do a lot of things right, can be a good veteran, a good teammate, and can help you win games, just not necessarily at the 2023 offensive production level. So that's kind of where you start on the money side. And it's like, okay, who do we want to spend it on? Well, you got to figure out what kind of hitter you want, right? You want on-base guys. Number one, this team in an era of slugging, you still got to have guys on base who you can drive in.
Yeah.
And the Rangers haven't had any of that. And so these aren't guys who go up looking for walks, but they're guys who have disciplined approaches, don't chase, and yes, get on base more often, either via walks or just singles. They stay alive in at bats. They put the ball in play. And so it's like, well, who is a free agent that could be like that? Well, I've mentioned Kyle Tucker. Kyle Schwarber is going to be a big one.
Yeah.
Luis Arise is going to be a free agent.
Yes, and he's much cheaper than those other two you just mentioned.
And guy who hits 300 perennially, guy who gets on base
Wasn't
a lot.
he a 3-time batting champion?
I mean, I'm just saying. So there are guys that you can identify who you think fit. But of course, the Rangers always talk about the makeup component and all that. That's fine. They'll sort it all out. So how much of that, let's say 60 million, do you want to put into the offense? Because you got to re-sign some relievers. You're going to have to sign a starting pitcher, maybe two. And so at what, how much money do you have to play with, and how many spots do you have to fill? Again, the farm system's not going to help a lot.
Right.
Especially
not for position players.
It's been depleted. You hope you can recoup some prospects in trades for Garcia, for Heim, maybe Josh Young, who's had a tumultuous week, it would appear, and even Simeon. The more money you eat, the better prospects you're probably going to get.
Sure.
So there are ways to add talent to a farm system without it being the draft or the international signing period. So it's just a lot of work now that has to go into this, and I'm sure the Rangers are already looking at it, already have their thoughts. They'll have pro scouting meetings in October. They used to do them in Arizona. I think they've been doing them here lately, and they will put their minds together and come up with a plan. Because once 5 days after the last out of the World Series, everybody becomes a free agent, and you can start contacting them. And Rangers need to act fast because. And Chris Young tends to do this.
Yeah. Did it with Higashioka last year.
He gets who he wants.
Yep.
And he does it quick. Get the guy you want before the winter meetings. That's always been a good strategy for me.
Yeah, it is. And again, I think it flatters the player. Like Higashioka, I remember in particular being flattered last year. Like, man, they reached out to me like the day after the World Series.
They like me. They really like me. Yeah. I mean, it is a courting process, and
and the fact that the Rangers' offense has been so bad for the last 2 years, there's a potential to think maybe hitters don't want to come here because they're just wondering, well, what the hell's wrong with that place? Why can't they hit? And we don't know, to be honest with you. They've changed hitting coaches. I mean, maybe it's just like we've said, too many of the same guy.
Right.
And so the only thing they can't do is the same thing. Because as we know, we all know, the true definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. They will not get different results. That's clear. We said on one of the shows earlier this week, the headline was, okay, 2023 was the aberration. We were hoping 24 would be. No, 23 was the aberration. So now it's time to change things up and figure out how to make sure that that Chris Young's goal, his goal was to make 2024 the aberration and to be a perennial contender. That's still his goal. Right. But 23 for now is going to have to be considered the aberration.
Yeah, and you'll have to have considerations for future payrolls and all of that, and that's always part of it too. But I can't imagine how frustrated and how crazy Chris Young has been going here. Look, he's the one who put this together. I know some of these guys came from the John Daniels era, but starting in 21 with the signings there late in the year of Simeon and Seager and John Gray and Cole Calhoun, which obviously didn't out, but Chris Young was in those meetings. All right, Chris Young's fingerprints are all over this.
He was the general manager,
right.
Yeah,
and so some of these things, the player decline of Simeon and Heim and Garcia since those great seasons in 23, that has all happened on Chris Young's watch. So he needs to figure that out too. And maybe it's a coaching thing. Maybe there are coaches who may not be back. I'm not sure. I would hope not. I would hope that Tony Beasley doesn't have anything to do with this. And Corey Ragsdale. I mean, these
and
guys,
Mike Maddox,
right? And these guys are those three coaches have helped produce the best pitching staff in the league and the best defense in the league. Bruce Bochy is going to be the big one. Does the manager come back or not? So that's another offseason thing. What kind of team does he want to come back?
Right.
I think that's another question.
Sure.
I mean, he watches these games. He knows who's on the other teams. He knows who's going to be free agents. So I would imagine that for him to come back, he would have to have some things rectified. The fact of the matter is that things aren't going to look the same next year. And if you want to go check out all the free agents, Marcell Ozuna, DH, is going to be a free agent.
Sure.
I know a lot of people who've been on our chat have liked Ozuna. Again, Schwarber, Arise, Kyle Tucker,
Bregman could opt out.
Exactly. Trevor Story can opt out.
Yeah.
A local guy.
Yeah.
It's not going to be cheap. So the Rangers need to identify who they want, how much they want to commit to the lineup. I would suspect that it would be a lot based on the last 2 years. And then they need to execute. They need to get the guys.
Yep. So, and finally on the changes, Jeff mentioned the potential on the coaching staff. The reality is, if there's a change at manager, it will be because Bruce Bochy decides he wants to retire, not because he's fired. And Chris Young will not be fired. For those of you who we see in the chat all the time who would like to see that happen, we don't believe that is something that will happen under any circumstances at the end of this season. So anyway, expect changes. Don't necessarily expect those two changes, and expect to see us again every day on the DLLS Rangers podcast as we join you for post-game shows, but also pretty much at 1 o'clock every day on the DLLS Rangers podcast.